So what if I told you that the genes you inherited from your parents actually dictate a shockingly small fraction of how you age?
Like incredibly small.
Right, like less than 10%. Today, we're totally tearing down this whole myth of bad genetics and looking at the actual biological levers that you control. So welcome to VPOD.AI. I'm your host, Mike.
And I'm Susan, so glad to be here.
Awesome to have you. Now, before we jump in, a quick message. You can sponsor this podcast for just $25. Your message will be featured across major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and more. If you're interested, visit VPOD.AI to get started today.
Great. So where are we starting?
Well, today we are looking at this massive nature medicine study alongside some really fascinating clinical research from endocrinologists like Dr. Michael Hollick. We want to figure out just how much control you actually have over your biological clock.
Yeah, and then we're going to zoom in on this one critical but honestly widely misunderstood daily habit that impacts all of it.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Because we always hear people say, oh, it's just in my genes whenever they talk about getting older.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
It's like there's this pre-written destiny that we're all just, I don't know, passively walking toward.
Right. It's such a pervasive mindset. I mean, we tend to view our DNA as this crystal ball. You look at your parents or your grandparents, and you just assume that's exactly how your health is going to play out over the next few decades.
Which is pretty depressing if you think about it.
It really is. But the research is pointing in a completely different and, frankly, much more empowering direction. Like when you look at the data from that Nature Medicine study.
I mean, it is massive, by the way.
Oh, totally massive. I mean, they analyzed data from nearly 500,000 adults to figure out what actually predicts premature aging and early death. And the results, they fundamentally rewrite the whole narrative.
Yeah, 500,000 people. That is just a staggering amount of data to pull from. And the results really flip the script on, well, basically everything we think we know about aging.
Exactly. The finding that shocked so many people is that genetics play a surprisingly tiny role. I mean, the vast majority of our aging outcomes are dictated by environment and lifestyle.
So it's not set in stone.
Not at all. It turns out biological aging is not a pre-written destiny. Nearly all the factors that influence how well and how long you live are largely within your control.
Right. And, if our genes are just the blueprint of a house, our daily lifestyle choices are the actual builders.
I love that analogy.
Thanks. It just means we can, actually change the materials we use every single day to make the house weatherproof. Look, you probably know the baseline here. You know you need to prioritize sleep. You know you should lift weights and eat a Mediterranean-style diet.
Sure, the basics.
But this study reframes that by showing exactly how those choices act on a cellular level. It breaks it down into 5 core pillars. Let's look at the actual mechanics, because understanding the mechanism changes everything.
It really does change how you approach your day. Let's start with movement. And just to be clear, we aren't talking about running ultramarathons to stay young.
Thank goodness, because I am not doing that.
Right. No, we're talking about consistent, purposeful activity, brisk walking, cycling, or resistance training a few times a week. The reason this matters so much for aging is mitochondrial biogenesis.
Okay, remind everyone what that means.
Sure. So your mitochondria are basically the powerhouses of your cells. When you move consistently, you force your body to adapt by creating more of them and making them stronger.
Oh, wow. So you're literally upgrading your cellular engines.
Exactly. This improves how your body regulates metabolism, and crucially, it fundamentally reduces systemic inflammation, which is like the key driver of the aging process.
Okay, so if movement creates the energy demand, your body has to recover from that demand, which leads us to the second pillar, which is sleep.
Yes, the big one.
We always hear, 7 to 9 hours. But what is actually happening in the brain to slow down aging while we're unconscious?
This is where we get into cellular waste clearance. So during your waking hours, your brain is incredibly metabolically active. And just like a car engine produces exhaust, your brain cells produce metabolic byproducts.
Like actual waste?
Yeah, actual waste. And if those byproducts build up, they cause oxidative stress and age the brain prematurely.
Yikes. So the body needs a specific mechanism to clear that out. And that kind of ties into the third pillar, nutrition, right?
It does.
Because we know an anti-inflammatory diet is the foundation for healthy cells like colorful plants, healthy fats. But it's also about specific micronutrients, right? Like magnesium acting as this anti-stress mineral to relax the nervous system.
Spot on. And managing the nervous system naturally brings us to the fourth pillar, which is stress management.
Because chronic stress is just terrible for us.
It's the worst. Chronic stress spikes your cortisol, which actively damages your cells over time. So finding ways to lower that cortisol, even just taking a nature break to rebalance the nervous system, is completely vital.
Totally. And finally, we have the fifth pillar, mental stimulation, keeping the brain active with puzzles, new skills, and social engagement.
Yes. Engaging your brain with novel tasks strengthens your synaptic connections. It builds cognitive reserve against aging.
Okay, let's pause and actually dig a bit deeper into those middle pillars, specifically that interplay between sleep and stress. Because they seem to operate in completely opposite directions when it comes to, cellular housekeeping.
Oh, absolutely. They are totally at odds.
You mentioned sleep clears out waste. Can we get specific about how that works? Because I was reading about this thing called the glymphatic system.
Yes. The glymphatic system is arguably one of the most fascinating discoveries in sleep science.
Okay, break it down for us.
When you drop into deep restorative sleep, that sweet spot of 7 to 9 hours, your brain doesn't just power down like a closed laptop. The cells in your brain literally shrink by up to 60%.
Wait, really? They physically shrink?
They physically shrink. And by doing that, they create all this space for cerebrospinal fluid to rush in and literally wash the brain.
That is wild.
It flushes out all those toxic metabolic byproducts we talked about, including amyloid plaques, which, are heavily associated with cognitive decline. It's this incredibly active, essential pressure washing system for your mind.
A pressure washing system. I love that visual.
And while that's happening, the rest of your body is repairing tissues and aligning your internal systems with your circadian rhythm.
Okay, so sleep is this highly orchestrated, deep cleaning cycle. But then you have chronic stress, which is doing the exact opposite.
Exactly.
If sleep is taking out the cellular trash, is chronic stress basically just hosting a messy party in our bodies every single day?
That is a brilliant way to put it. This raises an important question, because if chronic stress is constantly dumping trash, redlining the engine, and creating damage,
Right.
and your sleep is constantly trying to clean it up, you have to ask yourself, does your body actually have the right internal tools to execute those repairs?
I see where you're going with this.
You can try to manage your stress and prioritize your sleep all you want, but if your biological systems don't have the specific nutritional materials they need to function, the whole system just starts to stutter and break down.
And that perfectly bridges us to the missing link here.
Right.
Because we can control our diets, right? We can focus on those anti-inflammatory foods.
Sure.
But there is one vital nutrient that is absolutely crucial for mood, bone health, and immunity that a staggering 93% of Americans are just completely failing to get enough of.
93% is almost an invisible epidemic.
Yeah.
And the nutrient we're talking about here is vitamin D.
Right. 93% of us are failing to get even 400 IU of vitamin D per day from our diet.
Yeah.
And the wild part is the clinical data shows that 400 IU doesn't even come close to what you actually need.
It really doesn't. Dr. Michael Hollick, who is this pioneering endocrinologist and researcher on this exact topic, has pointed out something very frustrating for people trying to eat healthy.
Which is,
natural food is just a terrible source of vitamin D.
it is. It's so unfair. You'd have to eat absurd, medically inadvisable amounts of food to hit sufficiency. Let's look at the actual numbers here.
Let's do it.
A 3-ounce piece of farmed salmon only has 447 IU. A cup of fortified milk gives you 100. 8 ounces of vanilla yogurt, just 86 IU.
Yeah, it's nothing.
You literally cannot eat your way to optimal vitamin D levels, no matter how clean your diet is.
You really can't. And people immediately think, well, I'll just go outside. It's the sunshine vitamin, right? My body will just make it.
That's what I always thought.
But Dr. Hollick's research shows that even the sun isn't enough anymore. Unless your full-time job is being a lifeguard, safe sun exposure just isn't going to cut it.
Wait, I have to push back on that.
Go for it.
Humans evolved outside under the sun. Are you seriously saying we physically cannot get enough naturally from the environment anymore? How did we survive as a species if our environment can't provide the basic building blocks for our hormones?
That is totally fair. What's fascinating here is that Our modern lifestyles have fundamentally changed our relationship with the environment, so supplementation is now a biological necessity, not just a bonus.
How so?
Think about it. We don't live like our ancestors. We work indoors behind glass that blocks UVB rays. We commute in cars.
True.
And when we do go outside, we wear sunscreen, which is absolutely fantastic and necessary for preventing skin cancer, but it physically blocks the exact wavelengths of light required to synthesize vitamin D in the skin.
Oh, wow. So the mechanism itself is just broken by modern life.
Exactly. And when physicians test for this, the clinical biomarker they look at is called 25-hydroxyvitamin D.
Just to ground that for everyone listening, when you look at your blood test results, 30 nanograms per milliliter is generally considered the absolute floor for sufficiency, right?
Right.
Under 30, and you are operating at a deficit.
Precisely. To be considered sufficient, your blood levels need to be above that 30 nanogram cutoff, but the average U.S. adult is falling well below that, regardless of the time of year.
Yeah, the data shows that even at the end of summer, in August, when you'd expect levels to peak from all the summer activities, the average adult is only hitting 29.
Still below the clinical cutoff.
Still below. And in the winter, it drops drastically down to 18 to 22.
And honestly, the difference between seasons is surprisingly small in the grand scheme of things. Whether it's August or February, you are likely operating at a biological deficit.
Which is pretty alarming.
It is. This widespread lack of sufficiency is why health practitioners are almost universally emphasizing the need for a daily vitamin D supplement. You just cannot optimize your cellular housekeeping without it.
But, and this is a massive but, you can't just blindly pop a pill and call it a day.
No, you definitely can't.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because not all supplementation habits are created equal. You could be taking the right supplement and getting zero benefit if you don't understand the mechanics.
Far from it. If you're going to take a supplement, you need to understand how your digestive system actually processes it. The absolute most crucial rule of vitamin D is that it is a fat-soluble nutrient.
Meaning, it literally requires dietary fat to cross over the lipid bilayers of your cells and actually absorb into your bloodstream.
Yes. So if you take a standard vitamin D pill with just a glass of water on an empty stomach, your body can't properly absorb it.
It's like pouring expensive coffee into a mug that has a hole in the bottom. You're just completely wasting your money.
Well, that's exactly what it is. The molecular structure of the vitamin strongly prefers to bind with healthy fats to be transported through the intestinal wall, so you need to pair it with foods like avocado, olive oil, flax, or just a meal that naturally contains beneficial fats.
Okay, so I have to ask about timing.
Yeah.
Because I practice intermittent fasting and I usually skip breakfast entirely.
Okay.
Does it matter what time of day I take this? Am I going to mess up my circadian rhythm if I take it at night with dinner instead of the morning?
The best time of day to take vitamin D is honestly whenever you will remember it consistently. And crucially, whenever you are actually eating a meal with fat.
Oh, so it doesn't hype you up or anything?
No, it doesn't have a strict timeline like some medications that stimulate you or make you drowsy. The key is just tying it to an existing daily habit. So if you skip breakfast, do not take it in the morning with black coffee.
Got it.
Wait until your first actual meal or take it with dinner.
So leaving the bottle right next to your plate at the dinner table might actually be the smartest move for someone fasting.
Exactly. Consistency and absorption are what really matter. Now, there's one exception to the food rule.
What's that?
A few premium supplements actually build high-quality oils right into the capsule itself.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, if your supplement already contains extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or flaxseed oil built into the liquid formulation, then the fat is already provided. You can take that on an empty stomach.
Well, that's pretty rare, right?
Very rare. Always check the label. If it's a dry powder capsule, you must take it with food.
Okay. And what if you forget? Because, let's be honest, we all drop the ball sometimes.
The great thing about vitamin D is that it is highly forgiving. Because it's fat-soluble, it actually stores in your body's adipose tissue, your fat cells.
Right.
It isn't flushed out in your urine at the end of the day like vitamin C. So if you miss a Tuesday, you don't need to panic. You can literally just take double the dose on Wednesday to make up for it, and your body will store and utilize it perfectly.
I love that. It takes so much pressure off of having to be perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together.
Let's do it.
We've talked about cellular housekeeping. We've talked about how the lymphatic system pressure washes the brain and how chronic cortisol redlines the engine.
Right.
And we've established that we desperately need vitamin D, properly absorbed with fat, to give our bodies the baseline tools. Let's bring this full circle because this specific nutrient intervention actually loops right back to those anti-aging pillars we started with,
Yes.
particularly sleep.
It does. And the biological connection is incredibly profound. There's a bidirectional relationship between vitamin D and sleep.
Meaning they affect each other.
Exactly. They directly influence and regulate each other. Vitamin D isn't just sitting inertly in your bones making them strong. It acts much more like a hormone in the body. And it's actively involved in the complex production of melatonin.
Melatonin, the sleep hormone.
Yes.
The very thing that regulates our circadian rhythm, which we already established, is one of the ultimate anti-aging tools for allowing that deep cellular cleaning. But how exactly does a vitamin make a hormone?
This is where the mechanisms just get beautiful. There are actually vitamin D receptors clustered in the specific areas of the brainstem that control sleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When vitamin D binds to those receptors, it helps regulate the enzymes needed to convert an amino acid called tryptophan into serotonin.
And serotonin is the precursor to melatonin.
Exactly. Serotonin is the direct precursor.
So without enough vitamin D, you literally lack the enzymatic spark to turn your raw materials into the hormone that puts you into a deep sleep.
Spot on. When your vitamin D levels are low, that conversion pathway is bottlenecked. Your melatonin production suffers.
Which means bad sleep.
Which means shorter sleep duration and much poorer sleep quality. You aren't dropping into that deep restorative phase where the glymphatic system flushes the amyloid plaques.
Oh, wow.
And here is where the bidirectional part kicks in. Inadequate sleep actually increases your biological risk of vitamin D deficiency. It becomes a vicious compounding cycle of accelerated aging.
Oh my gosh. So let's trace the domino effect here.
Okay.
If you're stressed out, you're redlining the engine and creating inflammation. That stress ruins your sleep. If you're ruining your sleep, your brain shrinks less and you aren't clearing out the cellular waste.
Right.
And if you're lacking vitamin D on top of all that, you can't produce the melatonin to get into that restorative sleep anyway. You're just trapped in a biological traffic jam.
Perfectly said.
But the flip side is also entirely true. If you optimize your vitamin D with a healthy fat, you unblock that pathway.
Exactly.
You produce better melatonin, you get deeper sleep, the glymphatic system kicks in to wash the brain, your systemic inflammation drops, and your biological aging slows down. So what does this all mean?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, longevity is not about trying to magically rewrite the DNA you inherited. It's about optimizing the internal environment for your cells to do what they already know how to do.
Wow.
It's about understanding that your biological systems do not operate in isolation. Your sunlight exposure, your dietary fat intake, your sleep architecture, your stress management, they are all interconnected gears in the exact same machine.
They really are.
By making smart, simple, daily choices, like ensuring your body has the exact molecular raw materials it needs to synthesize its own hormones, you're giving your genes the best possible environment to thrive.
It really makes the idea of taking control of your biological clock feel so highly accessible. Like we aren't talking about million-dollar science fiction longevity treatments here.
Not at all.
We're talking about taking a 20-minute walk in a green space to lower your cortisol so you aren't redlining the engine.
Yeah.
We're talking about making time for 7 to 9 hours of sleep so your brain can literally pressure wash itself.
Yes.
And we are talking about simply eating a handful of nuts or a slice of avocado with your daily vitamin D to make sure it actually crosses the lipid bilayer and gets to work.
It is the small, biologically sound, consistent inputs that create the most dramatic, long-term outputs for your health span.
It is beautifully responsive.
Yeah.
And it honestly leaves me thinking, if our biology is this deeply sensitive and interconnected, it's simply adding a healthy fat to a daily vitamin can unblock an enzymatic pathway, alter our melatonin, transform our sleep architecture, and ultimately change the rate at which our brain cells age. What other invisible everyday habits are we walking around with that hold the exact same power to completely reshape our future?
Thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and take care of your future self.